We are live.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American
Why
Green
will they do it cheer perversity?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Green Factory Podcast. Nathan.
And this is Colin.
Here we are again. Trials and tribulations of Colin's life this week. And for most of the people from what, like Des Moines up or over? Or?
It's a very specific swath of land.
Oh, okay.
We got hit by a derecho.
Has that happened before in American history?
Yes, but I don't think one has ever hit this.
A populated area?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least not like one that. Yeah, it completely fucked up the city.
Okay.
We essentially got hit by a hurricane with the same notice as it would be if a tornado hit.
Oh, so you didn't have time to like board up your windows?
Nope.
Yeah, Dad said the trees, they're just trees and fences are down and people's houses were cut in half by trees.
Yeah.
Falling through them.
Oh, those trees just uprooted and just leaning over. Like nothing broke on the tree. The whole tree just went, nope, I'm going to sleep.
Got sucked out of the ground, huh?
Yeah, it's a weird thing that I never fucking heard of before until now. And essentially, like, what makes it like super like dangerous is because derecho just means straight line in Spanish.
Okay.
It's not like, you know, it's not a twisting wind like a tornado. It's not like a hurricane. Because I imagine a hurricane kind of twists because that's like, you know, hurricanes have rotation to them.
Yeah.
But also the wind is kind of like it fluctuates.
Yeah.
This is just like all the wind in one direction. Now.
Wall of air.
Yes, all in the same direction. A sustained direction of wind. Like the earth just turned itself into a jet engine.
Nice. And nobody had any. I mean, people knew there were going to be high winds, but I don't think they knew that was going to happen.
I mean, the tornado sirens went off. It's like, oh, something's happening.
Yeah.
And even when it was like going on, it was like, well, that seems bad out there, but like it doesn't seem like a tornado's going on.
Yeah.
But it was just like wind and rain to the point where it's like you couldn't see, like
Yeah.
you couldn't see anything. It's just wind and rain and vertical. Or horizontal, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's just like the sustained wind in a one direction, there's like some things where it's like, oh, that's perfectly fine. But if you take the same thing and it was canted at like 45-degree angle, just completely fucked. Every tree line basically looks like, if you ever see like photos from like from wars where like they fired an artillery barrage into a forest, that's essentially what every tree line looks like.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, everybody has a tree in this neighborhood. Like something fell off their tree. We had to go help Keegan because like half the tree just fell off into the garage or into the driveway. So we spent like 3 hours just clearing that out of the way.
That sounds fun.
I mean, it's better when what everyone else had to do. So some people are like, yeah, the tree just hit the house, and
Yeah, it's just in their living room,
it's like,
watching TV 1 minute and the next minute. Imagine if you were watching Twister when that happened. You fell into your house and didn't know.
and I may have killed my Grubhub driver because I ordered Grubhub like 30 minutes before this happened.
Yeah.
He came, dropped off the food, everything was okay. Like the food got dropped off while the tornado sirens were going off.
Yeah.
And then like he drove away. It's like, oh cool, I got my food. And then like this happened.
Are they looking for him?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I just like you being up. Well, like when I was driving to Iowa City, because this whole entire city wasn't working. All the cell phone towers didn't work. Nothing was working. And fucking like, well, I can't get internet on my phone. My phone doesn't work. There's no power. There's no internet. All right, let's go to the radio. Let's see what's happening. Fucking no information.
Yeah.
No like 24 hours emergency news going on. The best you get is like if you listen to Iowa Public Radio every 30 minutes, there's kind of like a local news update that gives you almost no information. It's like, hey, here's what you should be doing. We need help here. Fucking nothing.
Yep. We're ready. We're ready for it in this country. Got our shit together.
And it's a literal fucking disaster.
Now, they have FEMA or anything up there doing anything?
Nope.
Or is this just well, this isn't. I mean, I imagine there's a shortage of hotel rooms, but you guys still have like food and water and stuff. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we're getting stuff in because that at my store, power went out and everything that was refrigerator frozen, all thrown out.
Oh, they just didn't even try to bring in the trailers and stuff.
Nope.
Just get rid of it, huh?
Yep. Well, it seemed like they're replacing the generator on the roof, so I'm
Okay.
guessing it just didn't work.
Didn't fire, yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
So yeah, it was fun. But yeah, driving up to Iowa City, I counted at least 7 semis just fucking churn the fuck over on the highway, and barely off the highway. Like some areas where you're driving, like between cars and semis overturn, it's essentially a tunnel on the highway.
Nice.
If anybody is like, if fucking some trucker's doing his LA turnaround and like starts jittering on the side of the road, he could just like plank off of that and create a new accident like that.
Is there anything valuable in those trailers? I wonder if anyone's going at the tops of them with fire, trying to see what was in them.
Yeah, not yet.
Crackheads will always be out doing that.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time.
So yeah, that pretty much fucked up everything here.
No.
What's the weird? Because like you think of like the flood, and it's like, well, all of downtown got flooded, and thousands of people are out of homes, but at least everything still worked. Like traffic lights still worked. The electricity worked mostly. Like everything still worked. There's just like, well, here's an impasse of water. Here, just like nothing worked.
Yeah, Mom said even the stop signs and the street light signs were broke down. And
Oh yeah. So so we're coming up on like 4-way intersections. So you have like you really have like 5 lanes because you have like 2 lanes, the turn lane, and then the other 2 lanes. Now those are intersecting, and now those become 4-way stoplights because there's no lights that are working.
yeah.
And so you have this fun thing where like you look into the person next to you, it's like you and me, we're going together. And then if there's a guy that needs to take a left-hand turn, it's like, we're blocking your way, better come with us. And just hoping nobody fucks it up, gets greedy.
They're not on their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this would be a good time to look at Facebook.
Is Facebook working yet?
Wow, news update. Donald Trump's younger brother died.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, like, just now.
Yeah.
I just got it. I'm getting messages on my phone. It was the wrong one.
Why did the devil spare? Why didn't the devil spare the good one? Or God, whatever.
I forget what actors had died, or someone was talking about David Bowie died. And it's like, there is no God in this universe. David Bowie's dead, and there's still a house full of Kardashians. An observation like that. It's like, yeah. I don't know the Kardashians, but I guess they're the entertainment weirdos.
Oh yeah, and there was where we finally got our power back Thursday, so we're out of power for 3 days. So we had to throw out all the food. That was fun.
Oh yeah, that town's gonna smell great in about 3 days.
Yeah.
Just piles of rotting meat everywhere.
I remember the store manager there tossing milk because you don't want to fucking dump milk down the drain because that's a great way to destroy your pub plumbing system. So
Oh yeah.
they just have a fucking garbage trailer out back, and they're just
Yeah.
tossing the milk in there, and they're like, is there a better, more efficient way we can throw 4 gallons of milk into the trailer at a time? It's like, who gives a shit? Just throw it.
Yeah, I love those questions. Is there a better way we could be doing this? It's like, we're just doing this. Go to your office and think about it. I get it. You don't want to help. Don't think about it.
Ah, he's helping. I mean, he's fairly good for a store manager, but he's also like one of those guys like you look at him do his job and he's like, well, I could never do that because everything he says, I would feel like I'm completely lying to people for the things he says and he believes because I know that not to be, I know not to believe him, but he seems to believe himself and be happy about it. It's like, well, you're good at your job because you can lie to yourself.
Look him in the eye, give him a pat on the back. To thine own self be true, man. Just do your thing. Whatever you're doing.
At least he's better than the last store manager who was just a complete asshole who disappeared under mysterious circumstance. So he's probably doing sex stuff to people. So
Yeah. Probably yeah. It's always the fierce leaders. We're going to uphold a standard of excellence, and 2 weeks later he's got his dick out somewhere. It's like, yeah, that's excellent. There. You're doing it, man. You're showing us how it works. I never got to have your dick out, guys. Some of the people I know that making like $250K a year in some like upper position. It's like, I know, I'm gonna whip my dick out. It's like, no, dude, you're not. Why are you gonna do that? But I think it comes with like the personal intensity of being able to want to have that job that makes you that kind of person. Because there's like no danger. You give me a $500,000 a year job, I won't even make eye contact with the secretary. I'm just gonna stay in my lane because I'm happy I'm making $500K a year. Now I probably wouldn't be effective at that job. I definitely wouldn't be a dynamic leader, but I would do nothing to imperil that. Because for that kind of money, I could go home, have a house, a virtual reality helmet, and I could just have my dick out on the internet all the time. It's nobody's business. But yeah, those. We're not saying that happened. We're not making out. I'm always amazed when I hear the story about, hey, what happened to what's his name? He was going to be the vice president of something. It's like, well, he was getting handsy with the help. It's like, why do these guys do this shit?
oh, he had a vice position ready for somebody.
Yeah, he had some vice, all right. Yeah, he was going to get no, what's the vice he was thinking about? Or stealing money. That's always the other big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all stealing money. It's like, really? Did they think they were going to be the ones that got away with it? It's like, they fooled us all. That makes me wonder about that, though, because, like, people keep doing it, and they get caught. But, like, what if there's a group out there that's, like, doing it and never getting caught? It's like, there would be a reason people do this.
Yeah, it's like people at work is like their job seems stressful, and they it seems like it kind of sucks, but they all seem to be happy, and then like it's because like somebody gave them like access to like the company account, and it's like over the past 5 years they've just like ran up like $100,000 in like sex stuff online.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, and I have thoughts like, I'll be driving around and I'll go past some place where I know somebody wronged me, and it'll be Christmas or something, and I'll be like, what if I just went in there and killed that motherfucker right now? But I don't do it because it's like, I'm not going to get away with it. I mean, that's not a good example.
That'll teach them.
Well, I mean,
Now we'll get Jesus to raise you back to life, and then you'll learn.
no one will learn anything, but I feel really good about it. Yeah, I'm glad that guy's dead. Hope he's in hell. But I don't act on it because it's like, and I know everyone has those thoughts, but it's like, yeah, who's the guy that's like, I'm gonna do it. And I do like the original schemes. Like just the straight up stealing is kind of lame, but it's like, let's invent a fake company that sells services that don't exist. And I mean, you can pocket millions And then, you know, if you get a smart enough lawyer, when you get caught, maybe you can keep some of the money. You never know.
You get to keep money, your position, your job,
Get promoted. This guy's thinking outside the box.
or you get fired and some other company hires you and gives you more money. It's like, well,
He-
well,
because
everybody knows them.
do they? I mean, I don't know. I mean, or maybe he was. Yeah, you never know. There's weird connections we make in life with other people. Maybe it was a co-embezzler at another company, and they worked this out together. It's like, don't worry, I'll get you a job over here. And that must be how things work, because it's obviously 'cause the stuff we see. It's like, well, this makes no sense at all. There must be crime involved at some point.
He thought outside the box illegally. Hire him.
Get him in here. Well, it's like the hackers that they hire. These guys break into our systems. Show us how it works. That's just because that's a mercurial skill. You're some mid-level executive somewhere. It's like no one can replace you. That's not the case. Almost anyone could. Some of these guys, we could pick people randomly off the street to replace them. It would be no different. Just you know, quit using heroin and wear a suit.
Oh yeah, so F1 update.
Okay.
We had Silverstone number 2, or the 70th, what do they call it? The 70th anniversary race at Silverstone. Or
Okay.
it's just called the 7th anniversary race. And there's another unique thing because it's the only race to not have a location in its name for
Oh.
F1. They're celebrating 70 years of F1.
It's only been around 70 years,
At least F1 in its, you know,
as it is now.
yeah.
Okay.
Because I think, well, yeah, that's makes World War II like 70 years ago, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
because that's when it started. It was either like after, I believe, it was after World War II. Just a bunch of like fighter pilots who just like need
Go
need
fast
an
on the
adrenaline surge and need to almost die every day.
When I think of the origins of F1, I always think, because I don't know much about the history of F1, I always think of like that. You ever seen that video, the Beast of Turin, where it's this Fiat that's like 24 liters, but it's 4 cylinders, and you like have to fight the car. Got a handbrake, and the guy's looking over the front to drive it, and he's like got to mess with lever. It looks like a steampunk car. Because it was like the first car to go over 100 miles an hour or something. It's like, well, that doesn't sound impressive, but you realize its tires were as skinny as a 10 speeds. And this guy was shooting around the track at 100 miles an hour. It's like, oh my God. I always thought that was just kind of the origin of racing in general.
I saw a weird video today of it was like F1's cleverest innovations. So it isn't necessarily like important innovations. It was just like clever work around the rules.
Yeah.
And one of them was weird. It was called the F duct, whereas essentially it was just like this little scoop on the nose of the more towards the top of the nose, and it just like let air flow through. And I think it like cooled the engine or something. And like you could get like about 6 miles per hour faster in a straight if you had the F duct. But the way around the rule is that like it wasn't something that was automated. The driver had to activate it, and by meaning the driver activated it is that there was a hole in the cockpit that if they covered it with their hand, it would activate the F duct.
Okay.
So they're driving down the straight with one hand, and at one point there was like a guy like. They're talking about Fernando Alonso, and he's like covering up the hole with his left hand, and then he's like dialing in his brake bias on the car with his other hand. He's essentially just driving with his knees at like 230 miles an hour.
Yeah. Seems safe. Seems like a good time to kick the knee up there and just kind of do some computer working.
I also saw an interesting. We'll get back to this, but I saw an interesting video about Fernando Alonso where he had like a weird driving style one year. And it was because it was a year he won the championship, and it's because like it was like the rear end of the car was really good, like it could stay on track, so you could kind of throw a lot at it. But the front end of the car sucked.
Okay.
Had too much understeer.
Okay.
which means, which you're like someone explained, like understeer is like your road car has understeer because it's safer.
Yeah.
Which means like you crank it and the car is like lags behind what you actually turn.
Yeah, it's like kind of like it's a degree of delay in the gear, the steering box to the wheels.
Which is not great for drivers.
Oh,
Like
because-
drivers want to have a bit more oversteer, where it's like, which is like you turn a little bit and it turns too much. Like that's kind of where they want to be. Really ride the line.
Anticipatory steering. Yeah, yeah.
So, anyways, this car had like a lot of understeer, and you can see a video where he'd go into a corner and he's just cranking the wheel already as far as it will go, and he's not even turning, and he's like hitting the apex, and then the car turns. And he drew a whole season like that. Like, it's like usually you set up a car to like complement your driving style, but he just adapted his driving style. He drove around the car.
Not a complainer at all. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, I want like a 10-second delay between me turning the wheel and shit happening. That's gonna work out good.
But like the rear end of the car was good, so he always stayed on track. But it was like, you watch the video of that, it's like, that's fucking wild.
Not a complainer, that guy.
Well, he does a lot of different racing disciplines. He's trying to hit the Triple Crown,
Yeah.
which is to win Monaco. That's one of it, and then the other one is to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So he's won Monaco, he's won 24 Hours of Le Mans. The only one he hasn't done is he hasn't won the Indy 500.
Oh, okay.
Which is he's racing this year. He qualified in like 26th place. Like, I didn't know like the Indy 500 will basically like you have like your normal races in the Indy 500, and then there's just like a bunch of like random teams that just kind of like buy their way into a spot. Like that's kind of like the appeal of the Indy 500 is you
Yeah.
just get like way more cars than you usually do.
Yep. A big race.
Yeah.
A lot of cars, and the cars are unique to that kind of racing, that track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's see what the other innovations. Yeah, you had the stuff like the 6-wheel cars, which that was crazy. Which
Yeah,
I just
didn't last very long, did it?
no, I mean they outlawed it so quickly, but I mean
okay.
people still tried it because essentially the idea was just like you have more space and rubber to get more traction, so it was really
Yeah.
good around the corners.
Yeah.
And then the fan car, which that only lasted one race before they just outlawed it, which that created a ground effect.
Yeah.
Which there's a bunch of stuff where like they create ground effect and F1 just keeps outlawing it because it's deemed too dangerous, but now they're going to reverse that in a couple years or in 2022.
Yeah.
They're going to do ground effect because the cars basically can't race next to each other because of how the setup is, where it just like if you're not in clean air, which basically means like no one's in front of you, so you get the air that's naturally there, and your car is built to like run through that air. If you're behind that guy, then your air's all fucked and your aero doesn't work. So
Yeah.
that's why like the guy at the front just kind of like gets out and stays out because he's got no problems, and everybody else is like in dirty air in this weird small road track where you can only pass in 3 spots. So that's supposed to let them go. But yeah, the thing about they're worried about ground effect being dangerous is because when the car loses traction, you can fly around pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on a cushion of compressed. A lot of things could happen there. They use it in trains. I mean, they're really pushing that. Like,
Huh.
the tunnel train, because I mean, they can make a train go 900 miles an hour. You know, I mean, they could do it. But the thing is, it's like, well, what's he gonna do with the fucking sonic booms at like ground level? Like, who's gonna love that? All the thick ground air, just boom! It just blows all the windows out of your houses, but you can do it in tunnels. So yeah, I've heard of the ground. Everyone plays around. Well, the Europeans and the Asians play around with that. We don't care.
Well,
about
no, all of IndyCar switched to that. So Indy cars are ground effect cars.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm talking about for making them float along tracks where because it uses a lot less energy if you get.
oh, you're talking about trains? Okay,
Yeah, I'm talking about trains. I'm not talking about race car. Race car break the sound barrier. Be an amazing race to be at. It's behind blast glass.
So yeah, it was a pretty interesting race because last race, tires started exploding, and then this race they're gonna race on even softer compounds. So everybody,
Tell me about this. Yeah, they're going soft. There's 1, 2, and 3, and now they're going to be the 1, 2, and 3 are going to be the 3 softest compounds.
yeah.
Aggressively, okay.
So everyone was, and because it's still gonna be just as hot as it was last time, everyone was preparing to do a 2-stop. So it's gonna make it more interesting. And weirdly, like the Mercedes had trouble because their tires just like started to evaporate. They started to blister and stuff. like after 10 laps, like, well, we need to put new tires on.
Yeah.
Because like one of the things you have to do in F1 is you have to pit at least once, and you have to race on at least 2 different compound tires.
Oh, okay. That's a requirement?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other thing is one of those set of tires have to have been used in practice.
Huh.
So that's, and so like a thing that can go wrong with like if you place in the top 10 or maybe it's top 8 or something like that, you have to start the race with the tires you qualified on. And then everyone else behind them, they can pick whatever tires they want to race. So
okay.
So it can be an advantage, but they eventually, whatever tire they start with, they have to at least put a used tire on at some point. So I think you can start with a used tire, or you can put one on later, but at some point you have to use a used tire, unless it rains, and then those rules like go out the window.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But usually if it rains, like you're going to be pitting like fucking 8,000 times anyways.
Oh, okay.
Is the track drying? All right, come in for a pit. And then they spin out. All right, no, put the old tires, put the wet tires back on. That sucked. Which is what makes another thing that makes a wet race more interesting is like you literally a team will pit at least like 6 to 12 times in a fucking race. But yeah, so the Mercedes were having trouble with their tires. Max Verstappen was the only person who qualified on the hard compound tires.
Okay.
And he qualified in 4th place. And like I said, yeah, we had the Cinderella story of Nico Hulkenberg. Like, he finally gets to start. Like, will he get a podium? And no, he didn't get a podium. So. But I said also that like he has to be racing next to Max Verstappen, who's ruthless and clever, and Max Verstappen passed him in the first corner of the race. So
that Cinderella story just didn't happen.
yeah, I mean he did. He got in the points. I think he finished in like 6th or 7th place. He had a problem. Like they pitted him for a second time, and then like. Then the tires just like started to disintegrate and like they started to blister and there was a lot of vibration, and so like they pulled him in with like 6 laps to go and just put a different pair of different tires on just to stop the vibration, and like he ended up losing 2 spots when he did that, and I think he finished in 6th or 7th.
Oh,
But-
okay.
But I mean he finished in the points, so
Yeah.
and he got to race, so. But yeah, and so Mercedes had having trouble with their tires, but the tire. However, Red Bull has their setup going because usually Red Bull is known for their aerodynamics, which hasn't been doing good for them this year. The car seems to be very loose, but it was like really good in this race because apparently like their setup was just good on the tires. Also, another interesting thing with their setup, I guess is more adaptable is like they're better at riding on the curbs.
Oh, okay.
Because like when you hit the curbs, like not like a street curb, it's like a thing on the outline. There's like a thing on the outline of the on a curve, and it has like a rumble strip on it. So when they say curbs, that's what I mean. It's like curb spelled KERB, but it's weird.
Oh,
I'm not sure if it's a different thing or if it's a British thing.
yeah. You never spell like tires. TYRE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the other Red Bull driver, oh fuck, I just immediately forgot his name. Alex Albon. He made some crazy passes. Where essentially, well, I don't know. He's a pretty good driver, but he hasn't been doing that well for what Red Bull expects out of them this year. Like he was gonna get a podium, and then Lewis Hamilton like spun him around.
Oh, okay.
And then he hasn't been qualifying well, but he's been like kind of like fighting his way back up, and so he'll usually get in the points. But you know Red Bull is fucking ruthless. Like if you're not getting a 1 and 2, like we better look for another driver.
Yeah. And they'll say it to your face.
Oh yeah.
For another driver.
Well, I'm not sure. Did you get that episode in Drive to Survive season 2 where like they fired the one driver and knocked him back down to the B team and brought up Alex Albon?
Yeah, I remember that.
And like there's that part where they're like they're scraping off that guy's name and number and then putting Alex's on there. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
fucking ruthless.
And there'll be cameras like he's seeing that in the distance.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun while it lasted.
Well, I mean, because like they had 4 championships in a row, and then now Mercedes has just had like 6. So like they want to get back to championships, and they expect way too much. But anyways, yeah, he was making crazy passes where he was like halfway off the track, like on the curbs in the grass, like racing next to somebody and like passing them on the outside. It was like, wow, shit, he did it like 3 or 4 times. Like, man, that's crazy. So that was cool to watch.
I like the grass passes in Formula One. Those are always amazing. It's like,
But-
you wouldn't think the car would hold up to.
Well, yeah, that was what the Red Bull does well. It's like I don't think any of the other car, like the Mercedes, wouldn't be able to do that because as soon as they hit the curb, they probably would have lost traction or something. I mean, Mercedes can hit the curbs, but they can't like hang on there and do a move the same way the Red Bulls can. Yeah, I found that I was playing the F1 2020 and I found the actual like simulation setups. Because I was like, this game's too easy. It's like, I have all the assist turned off. And then I found the actual, like, oh, here's where it is. So now the car's, like, completely flies all over the place. If you go into a corner, if you break into a corner, and if you're still, like, turning the wheel and you accelerate out of the corner, you'll just spin. But if you have those, well, that's if you just slam the gas pedal, the thing will spin. But if you have, like, the wheel straightened out and you slam the gas pedal, well, then you can control it, but now you're not turning anymore.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So he made a good pass. I think he came in 5th. Yeah, he did. It was really cool to watch him. But eventually, everyone's doing their 2-stop strategy, and eventually, Max Verstappen comes out ahead of Mercedes. Because his he did so well with his tires, and then he just he won the race, so it was really cool.
Yeah.
Because usually,
Exciting.
yeah, because usually, so if you think of a NASCAR race, like what does it take to like get people interested in that? Is you just point the camera at the front of the pack and you just watch it. It's like, let's see what the leaders are doing. Not in F1. If you point the camera at the front of the pack, you're just watching a guy drive by himself.
Yeah.
Nobody's racing. Just like people are like, oh, that was a good lap. It was better than the person behind him, so he'll win the race. So in here, you point the camera at the front of the pack, and you got the 2 Mercedes and the Red Bulls all racing against each other. So That made that exciting. And then there's usually the most exciting stuff is in the backfield where like the cars are more comparable to each other. But
Mm.
so yeah, that was a really good race for what it was. Different.
Yeah.
So people are thinking like, hey, maybe we should like have even softer tires that are just deteriorate and just force the drivers to have to use these deteriorating tires.
Yeah, you got a clock running in the cockpit. Yeah, you got 10 minutes with these tires before they just completely decohere.
But it was still like, so Max Verstappen won, and then it was Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. So it's like it's still two Mercedes on the podium. So it wasn't that exciting. But yeah, at least somebody other than a Mercedes won the race.
Right. Yeah, that makes it nice. At least somewhat interesting for the people.
I don't know. You saw like a little bit of the race, but you didn't get to watch it really.
I got like 20 minutes. I got a little bit of pre-show, which I was just learning the names and what the cars look like, and then I got carried away.
So here's one thing that always blew my mind when I learned it. So the blinking lights on the back of the cars,
Yes.
those are not brake lights.
No. Yeah.
So the only time they use those is it's kind of for safety purposes. So like in a wet race, because those tires will spray like just a wall of rain and you can't see anything, the lights blink just so you can know where other cars are.
Yeah, those are like directional lights on an aircraft or something. They're not even. Aren't those controlled by like the safety people?
The race director.
Yeah, like because they're not in control of those in the cockpit.
No.
Somebody's throwing. Yeah, I didn't know.
So if there's like a wreck, sometimes like all the cars lights will flash in a specific pattern.
Mm-hmm.
They'll also have like at every corner there's like a big light, and it'll either be like yellow, green, or blue, and those are like technically flags. Like in an older race, you'd have a guy with a flag waving a yellow flag or a blue flag or whatever.
Yeah.
So if there's a wreck, you'll wave the yellow flag, and like you're supposed to slow down. And a blue flag means it's if the leader of the race is about to lap a guy, a blue flag will come out, and that tells the guy who's about to get lapped that you need to get the fuck out of the guy's way because you suck.
Yeah. You don't want the blue flag. You don't
Yeah.
want to be the blue flag guy. Right?
And then there's a white and black flag, which basically means if you overtook somebody but you did something illegal or dangerous, you have to give the spot back.
Penalty flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a green flag just means like, hey, everything's good. So if there is some sort of wreck, that's when the blinkers in the back of the cars will go on.
Yeah.
And then the other time they'll come on is sometimes depending like how the strategy is going on, sometimes people have to drive in a fashion to save their fuel. And what you do then is you do a technique called lift and coast, where you don't go hard to the corner, brake hard, and then accelerate as fast as the corner. You let off the gas as you go into the corner, and then you just kind of like coast through it. So when they're doing that, the lights in the car will blink to let the drivers know behind them that they're not accelerating.
Yeah, don't slam into the back. Trying to get my MPGs up.
But also, like that's why they are not brake lights, because they would distract the drivers too much.
Yeah.
And there would be accidents because, like, oh, he's braking. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it seems kind of in that middle zone of logic where it's like, oh, yeah, but I guess this works. Because there's like a third party other than the two drivers involved in like, what are we putting these out? And how are we indicating this? And it's like, yeah, okay. But,
there's like interesting like driver psychology stuff you can look up where it's like they I think that like you train drivers to like look into the corner when they're turning, because if they're distracted by something and like there's something like off to like if they're taking a left-hand turn and they see something off to the right, even if they're like turning the car left, they'll just start driving where they're looking, like
Yeah.
unintentionally, and like
Yeah, wherever your eyes track, the rest of your body's gonna favor that.
which is a weird phenomenon that they have to train around. Yeah, that's the F1 update, and they just have they're at the Spanish Grand Prix at the Circuit de Barcelona. Oh fuck, I forget Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia or something like that.
Catalonia, yeah.
Which that's where they do testing. So it's kind of seen as a boring track because every driver knows the track too well.
Oh, because they're always proofing out their cars on them before the season.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
They know every angle. Yeah.
But I don't know. The same things seem really exciting and during free practice. Like there's like a Haas qualified in the top 5. It's like, hey, where did that come from? And then the qualifying happened, and then just like everything just fell into line as it usually
Everything
does.
got back into place. The abacus was reset, and it's like, yep, no more magic.
They're changing one thing to make the driving interesting. So there's different what they call engine modes that like the engineers program into the car.
Yeah.
And so there's a different engine setup for qualifying than it is on race day. So they set up on qualifying, they basically like kind of take the limiters off. It's like they're not preserving the engine life of the car. It's like you can rev it as much as you want, stuff essentially like that. And then like, they get the fastest time. But then during race day, they have like a race day mode where it is limiting that stuff so you're not blowing up your engine.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to pit and get an engine replacement.
So in this race, there's only one engine mode allowed.
Okay.
So there's not a qualifying setup and there's not a race day setup. There's like you pick. It's like you get a qualifying setup or you get a race day setup. That's so we'll see if that makes it interesting, but it's still like the Mercedes were 1 and 2. So
Yeah.
it seemed like that didn't yeah, I was watching some stuff and they were saying like, the Mercedes qualifying mode is like a huge advantage over everybody else, and apparently it wasn't.
Yeah.
Although the times were closer than usual. I think the whole field was like about a second off.
Okay.
So like even the last place guy and the first place guy is like a second off, which doesn't seem like much, but that's actually a lot in F1. But it's closer.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're like 2 or 5 seconds off. So
Yeah. 5 seconds, a huge gap.
and I don't did that immediately make sense to you when because it doesn't actually make sense. It would make more sense to me to give a distance, like how far the cars are apart, than like a time rating. Or did that make sense to you?
Oh, that makes sense. But well, it's that's easier to calculate, and that makes more sense. And the people that are running the race and doing the mechanics of like how to beat these guys, it's a lot easier to use time than distance.
Yeah.
Because time is constant. Distance is variable. So.
Yeah, like once you get into like how the time stuff works, and then you can like say like someone's about to pit, then that makes more sense because then stuff like a pit takes at the minimum 20 seconds.
Right.
And then like you just do the math and with all the numbers and stuff. It's like, oh shit, what's about to happen? Because
How much time are these guys gonna add? If he's like, well, he's 100 feet from the pit, it's like, okay, well, what is that?
yeah.
It's like, well, how fast?
Because like races only like they are timed out to last only an hour and a half because they know like the general kind of average lap speed that's gonna happen, and then like that's how the lap gets. That's how how many laps they have. Basically, will just equate to an hour and a half.
Yeah. How do they break seconds down in F1? Is it tenths?
They get out to thousandths.
Thousands? Okay. Yeah.
So 3 decimal points.
Okay. So I didn't figure it was tenths. I didn't know if this was hundredths or thousands. But yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they can do that now with lasers and shit. It's not just some guy eyeballing it, waving a checker flag. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, so Spain is in like 5 hours or whatever. So see what happens there, if anything happens.
Yeah, I mean, I could watch it on ESPN online.
Yeah,
I saw the last one, so I'll try to catch the one in Spain, or at least a replay of it.
yeah.
Unless somebody flips their fucking car over.
Well, I just wanted you to watch like a whole race to see like how like you're not necessarily like into F1 or see a presentation of it to see like your general what you thought of it. Because I think like it was like the same way with like wrestling. Like you can't just show somebody wrestling. It's gonna come off as stupid and incomprehensible. You have to like look up hundreds of Wikipedia articles and YouTube videos to like understand the underlying like nuance that's actually going into this stupidity. So same thing with F1, where it's like you have to like understand like drivers, technology, teams, rules.
Rules committees, why rules change.
You have to understand why why the camera isn't just pointing at the guy out front, because that's not interesting, and why they have to make the guys losing the race more interesting than the guys winning the race.
I mean, yeah, car racing is something I understand a little bit more. I was never. Like,
I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of different. Like I've seen NASCAR stuff. Like that's easy to understand. Like I said, because the cars are nearly identical and it's closer racing. But
Yeah.
F1's it's kind of just a different beast. Like you can't just watch it and appreciate it. You have to like know shit.
Yeah, well, F1's a brilliantly, technically, mechanically challenging thing for very wealthy people.
Yeah.
And it's European, so it's just going to be complex by itself.
But I think they do a fairly good job with the presentation of it.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's exciting. It has a bigger following in the U.S. than what people. It's like soccer. It's like, oh, no one in America likes soccer, and then they'll have a championship here or something. It's like 35 million people will gravitate towards that area. Someone in America likes those. I don't know if the numbers are that big, but I know they did some soccer finals here like a couple of years ago, and they filled.
Yeah,
every-
sports bars where it's like, what's going on? It's like a soccer game. Like, what the fuck?
And they said that was all like Mexican immigrants and laborers. It's like, no, it can't all be that. There's not that many. Yeah, I mean, things have a following here. It's just like our homegrown domestic stuff is bigger, but there's still like 350 million people here. So there's a lot of people that could watch a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And we're also more people can just readily find this stuff out. Like you don't have to go to the library and get books on Formula One. You can just find stuff on YouTube. The whole history of it is there, and sometimes it's broad. And if you want to get specific about, a fascinating time in Formula One was in the mid '90s. They're killing off all their drivers because the cars were getting way too dangerous, and it was like a national tragedies when this would happen.
Oh yeah, that was because that's when the last death. Well, for that one guy, the last death in Formula One was when Ayrton Senna died.
Mm-hmm.
At Imola, which they haven't raced in for like years, like 10 years or something, and they're gonna race this year. So
Oh,
I think they changed. I forget what made it dangerous, but like the crazy thing about when Ayrton Senna died is that like the day before they had a test driver, like in his car, who like went flying off the track and died in the same exact area, and then he died in the race the next day in the same exact area.
yeah, that is weird.
So that's when they like really put the foot down, and really instituted like severe safety standards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're going back to Imola, so which I think only one racer. I think Kimi Räikkönen, who's like 42. I think he's the only racer in the field who's actually raced Imola like during an F1 race.
Right. Yeah, so he'll have that.
Yeah.
I've been
Well,
here.
he's in a really shitty car, so
Oh.
Alfa Romeo, they're really bad this year.
Really, they have a shitty race car? That surprises me, considering their reputation for quality with making regular cars. I'm shocked that Alfa Romeo has. They make beautiful
Well-
looking cars, but yeah,
Well, I mean, they use a Ferrari engine, so it's.
I know it's just kind of. A
I think they used to be Sauber, and the team's changed name like 7 times. It's an
Yeah.
Italian outfit that they're one of the plucky, we only have $170 million to make this team together outfit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we're not one of the 9 families that like dominates this. We're the young guys.
But I don't know, like the last couple of years, like I feel like Kimi Räikkönen would always pull out a surprising result where he'd like, oh, he came in 6th place. That I feel like he didn't deserve that with the car he had, but like he was a good racer. And then this year, it's like no, it's like they're dead last,
Yeah.
pretty much. Well, except for they got 1 point because of that one race where essentially half the field got wrecked out. So they have 1 point from that. And Williams still doesn't have a point, so still waiting for that magic to happen.
Bill? Okay.
I mean, we got 7 races left. We'll see what happens. They gotta get one. Come on.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna do I think they're doing 3 races back to back at Monza, which is like an Italian racetrack, which is it's a really fast track.
Oh, okay.
But so 3 weeks in a row, that something's got a weird. There's got to be a weird weather condition that'll happen, or they'll change something up, or the tires are just melting on the track, and gotta have something weird happen.
This race is challenged. The tires will be made of wax.
And also because the power is out for 3 days, I've been reading, actually going through that from Chespo to Famos book, the Ian McCollum book.
Okay.
So I've been going through that. It's a really. I'm still I think I'm approaching World War One phase,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of interesting rifle development where it's almost like every year the rifle is being improved upon,
Yeah.
and to the point where everyone doesn't want to invest in a new rifle, so they're just having these conversions done on the previous rifle.
Okay.
So you have the Chespo rifle, which was it was a take on the Dries rifle. It was like a needle fire rifle, something with a bolt and shit like that. It was kind of it was a bolt action rifle, but the thing that was interesting about it at the time is that they had paper cartridges.
Yeah.
And so they had behind the bolt there's this little rubber piece called an obturator.
Yep.
Because one thing that brass ammunition does is it expands and fills the chamber, so pressure doesn't go backwards, it all
Yeah.
goes forward. But in this, with a paper cartridge, pressure goes backwards, and so that was sealed up by the obturator, which had to be
Yeah.
replaced every 200 rounds.
Yeah. That's amazing what guns used to be.
And then when they switched to brass ammunition, they did a conversion to the Chespo. It was called the grass rifle, because it was I'm not sure if it's GRAS. I don't know if it's you say gras or whatever you'd say in French. I'm just gonna say grass because whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean.
And one of the funny reasons why they went with his conversion is because he was a captain in the French military, and because he was working for the government, they didn't have to pay him royalties for his design.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But these grass rifles existed forever, because anytime there would be oh, one of our allies needs foreign aid, they just ship all their all the rifles they aren't using to that country, and that country would be taken over, and then then they have all these grass rifles, and then they'd ship them to their to their allies, and just keep handing off these rifles that are obsolete.
Yeah. There's plenty of them around.
Until eventually hundreds of thousands of them just ended up in Ethiopia.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, there's guns like that that make their way. Just to the oddest places.
And then there was like,
Like the AK-47 is going to be. It's going to be around for like 300 years. They said it's like people will be using that forever.
yeah. Yeah, just interesting stuff about like how, and like just like main bat infantry rifles where it only lasted a year because they because of technology was just moving so fast,
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
and stuff like where they didn't want semi-automatic rifles because they thought soldiers would just use too much ammunition. They wanted the control over it.
Yeah.
Which is baffling, but I don't.
Yeah.
It makes sense in some ways, but
Yeah. It's like you got it's depends
As
on what time period you're in. If you look at like their concepts of orders of battle and fields of fire and stuff, it was way different from
Yeah.
anything. It was a lot of fixed positions and moving artillery.
What
around.
the other thing I always thought was weird is like you see the sights on these rifles and they're like measured out to like 1,300 meters. And you're like, what the fuck? This thing is not accurate up to that point. But then you realize like, oh, it's like 50 guys in a box and they're doing a thing called volley fire, where if
Yeah.
everyone aims at the same point and fires at once, one of you is going to hit this box of people and just raining fire down.
Well, it's like those guys that shoot those old they're like those ranch rifles, like those straight walled, big caliber, like almost 50 caliber, but they're not necked cartridges or anything. They're just a straight old cowboy rifles.
Yeah.
You can hit a 10 target at like 1,200 yards, but they're aiming almost like they're like this. Fire the gun and they answer a few questions, and then you hear ding. It's like, oh, they're just lobbing that sucker in. Yeah. Yeah, it's a completely. I'm trying to think of who this would be a good. I'm sure Forgotten Weapons has done this. I'm trying to think of what the first like real flat trajectory rifles. I think like a lot of the
Well, like one thing they were talking about is there's a lot of there's a lot.
7mm and stuff right before World War II was one.
Yeah, it's probably like one of the Mauser ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was always like there's this idea that like, oh, you just need a bigger bullet to do the most damage possible, and there's a lot of like sort of cavalry conversions of stuff where you're making a smaller rifle because like these rifles like like 4 feet 5 feet long for the infantry,
Yeah.
but then they make cut down versions for the cavalry.
Yeah.
And then like some cavalry will get their own stuff where it's like, no, we want a smaller bolt and all this other stuff, and you'd have like more power behind a smaller bullet, and then that flattened the trajectory.
Okay.
Because like the bullet isn't, it's not going to hit as hard as the other bullets, and also like there's also other bullets where like they didn't have like a point tip; it was like this rounded tip, so also that made weird characteristics to how the bullet flew, but also it was like devastating to whatever it hit. So
Yeah, the Weatherby rounds and stuff that just shoot Cape Buffalo with them.
yeah, I was also seeing the neat like requirements of like here's the Army infantry rifle and just super long, and then like here's like the cavalry rifle and the artillery rifle, and it's just like all the artillery ones are just like super lightweight and small because they're not really meant to be like mainline troops, but you need to give them something to defend
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, they're slash troops. They come in, they leave. They come in, they leave. They don't need. It's one of those old rifles. If you put the bayonet on them, they're as tall as the soldier. It's odd looking things.
And the cavalry's ones are interesting because of how they mount what do you call it, strap, what do you call this?
Shoulder strap.
Yeah, the shoulder strap. Because like how infantry would carry it, it's like it's over your shoulder and it's pointing up, but like cavalry, it's like they got to hold on to it, so they drape it like across their back in an angle, so like they put the where they hook up on the rifle in different places, and sometimes like right behind the trigger guard and at the front rather than at the butt of the rifle, because it just holds better as being like swung across your back. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. But Yeah, yeah, I can't wait to get to like the World War II and World War One stuff. Well, I don't think there's gonna be much for World War II, other than there's like there's these little section every once in a while that comes to like the different factories that made all these weapons, and then you'll get to like the portion where like this is how this factory intentionally made defects into the weapons they were making for the Germans, and then they're all rounded up and shot.
Yep. Oh, the Germans. Well, I heard told you about the guys that would pour pee on the V2 rocket guidance system,
Huh.
like the French, because they were made by French prisoners of war,
Huh.
and people they just rounded up, and they like put piss in a vial, and they knew like they would keep it like hidden somewhere, and right before they put the case on the V2 rocket, they'd pour piss in there because it would just devastate the guidance system. But it was dangerous because the damn rocket could explode. Because it was mild, your urine's mildly acidic enough where it's not immediately going to attack things, but when the system came on and it tried to run current through whatever, it'd just fry everything. So yeah, the French loved to sabotage, because the Germans, they were not the good guys in World War II. Speaking of which, I learned about a World War II. Someone was talking about making a model in one of the forums. It's amazing the weapons you've never heard about that like were around. And someone says, I would love to make, I forget what kind of truck it was, but it had the M45 quad. And I was like, M45 quad, what's that? And it was 450 caliber guns, basically on a exact, very similar thing to a Sperry ball turret frame. But it had 450 caliber guns. They called it a meat chopper because it was designed for a plane. It was designed for a plane that we were looking at making in World War II because we didn't like the guys like just shooting out of the side of planes because they were kind of exposed that way.
Yeah.
So they wanted to go with something where you could control it remotely from inside the plane, be more protected, and that didn't work out because the war ended. But they had this quad mount 50s. And they just put it on the back of a truck, and it had a little gas motor that you started, and it charged the battery. The whole system was electronic servo-driven, DC drive motor servo-driven, with 450 calibers. Now, technically, it was for troops to carry along with them in a line to defend against aircraft, which it was good at. But when they were doing like after the Battle of the Bulge, the guys just loved those. Because they called them the kraut choppers and other things. They just aim them at the ground. And if people were in buildings and stuff, they just 450 caliber. And those are those slow. But these ones had the big heavy barrels on them, the real heavy barrels. So they could fire them a lot more continuously.
Yeah.
But it was weird because you looked at the requirements. It required one gunner, and two. It was fielded as a piece of artillery. Because it was technically for air defense. It's like you're not supposed to just hammer into German cities with these things. But so it required one guy to operate it, and he was inside it driving it like this. And then two guys, when the 50 cals would jam, they'd constantly be pulling the levers. So you got two guys standing there, one guy in the middle swinging this thing around, and they're always pulling when the 50 cals would jam. Because the hotter they get, the more they jam. And but yeah, they were. Someone was saying, yeah, we should make a model of that. And I was like, what's a meat chopper? That can't be real. I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, it's real. They use it all the time. But the motor, it had a little motor on it. It's like a lawnmower engine. It could charge the system for 5 minutes of electrical power. So it was 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And that's, that's like Apex World War II electronics technology there. But they showed the batteries underneath this thing. And it's just like, wow, these things is a lot of batteries. And then, like I said, it's all DC drive motors kind of down on the armored belly of this half track. And they just have shafts that go up. And the shafts spin. There's one shaft that makes it go this way, one shaft that makes it go this way. And there was only like 4 points of articulation. But it's like, yeah, you took one bullet down in that thing. And those you just might as well take the guns off and start firing. But they had special cans designed that could hold 250 rounds of belted 50 caliber ammunition per gun. Hang them on there, and that's 1,000 rounds. And again, ostensibly for shooting down planes that were strafing supply columns, but after the Battle of the Bulge, you're like, yeah, we need more of these, like, because they just sit in towns and shoot at you from buildings, and you just get a lot of guys killed, and they're like, fuck this, send in the meat chopper, and it just kind of aims at the buildings or at the town in general. You know, it's because the Germans hated R50 caliber. They hated the Mod Deuce, and they definitely hated there weren't a lot of these around, but there were enough of them that guys were like, yeah, we need more of these. But the Germans absolutely hated the 50 cal, the Mod Deuce and everything. They didn't like it because you couldn't hide behind a brick building if someone had a 50 on a tank or something, because it just shoot right through the building. And anywhere you got hit, it was like Civil War. You know, if you got hit with a maxi ball in the Civil War, they amputated. You get hit with a 50 caliber, I mean, it's already been amputated. They just have to tie it off. There's no like, close the exit wound. This bullet weighs fucking half a pound or whatever. It weighs a lot.
We sent 1,000 at you.
Yeah. But I just never knew there was something called a meat chopper. It shouldn't surprise me. I mean, they use flamethrowers and everything else, but like I never considered that, like, oh, they just, let's put 450 cals on the back of a half track. But it was complicated. It was not like a weapon system that was never say die. It had a lot. I mean, he's 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. That was your run time. It wasn't like now, because the people that rebuilt them, because there's people that have these in America, and they go to SHOT Show or wherever you can rent time and shoot 4 of these things on a range. And now they put like all modern batteries and stuff in it, so it lasts for hours. But back then, they just had those wet cell batteries, and that was it. But yeah, that was something. It's like, they need to make a model of this. Like, I've never heard of this. And then I went down a YouTube rabbit hole and learned everything I wanted to know about, you know, shooting 450 caliber guns simultaneously at the crowds. They say they don't, because the people were asking, like in the comments, like, why don't they have this anymore? And they're like, well, Vulcan cannons are a lot more effective than this. Also more reliable. And then, because it's just kind of, because they use these in Vietnam too. The last time these were seen was they had those convoy trucks.
Yeah.
And they, I forget what they were called, but they were the trucks they painted black. And they put like scary faces on them and slogans. And yeah, there's guys, the Army would only give them like M60s, and they would just mount them on posts. And they're like, yeah, these guys are shooting at us down this road constantly. And so they kind of opened up some things and like, unofficially, we can give you this stuff, but this is not what you're supposed to be using. And there's a whole documentary about it. But yeah, there was one of these guys in these Vietnam convoy trucks. They had a meat chopper. They just kind of mocked up in the back of this truck, and it worked. I mean, it was spinning around, and
now you have like that. Well, I'm not sure what they have now, but you'd have like the little turret thing up top with like your 50 cal on it, and then like, you know, every third car would have a fucking automatic grenade launcher. That's kind of like.
Yeah, they have much more effective weapons today. I mean, I didn't know. I remember when I first saw that, I'd never heard of such a thing. I was like, there's a belt-fed grenade launcher? That's a real thing? That's something from Warhammer?
Those things are fucking heavy, too.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I mean, it's shooting grenades.
I never got to shoot it, but like I got the... Yeah, they're not meant to be... They're not carried by soldiers. They're all meant to be mounted, but it's like 50 pounds. Because we're doing an inventory of all the weapons at the reserve station, and like they have I forget what they're called. They're like M3s or something like that. There's like a letter and a number there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they got that big. You know, you look at it like a M60 machine gun. You have like the little feed tray where you like flop it down. This thing has like a feed tray that's like a fucking shoebox.
Slam and it'll take your fingers off. And it's pretty fast too. It's like
yeah.
It's not like it's like slow.
Because the first time I like heard about that was in Generation Kill, because they had it in the show, but also in the book they talk about it where the guy just like, like just people started ambushing from the buildings, and this guy just laid down fire, and he's like, how do you know like that wasn't gonna kill us? He's like, oh, I had no idea that building could have fell on top of. Because he actually like he like they blew up a building where like the front of the building just like collapsed down and basically killed everyone inside. Like, well, no more ambush, and like that could have like fell on them too, but it didn't. And there's a couple times where like the reason you don't engage that close with the automatic grenade launcher is because like those things can be armed, hit a thing, and ricochet and come back at you.
Yeah, that's no good. That's not. Well, that's one thing they hated like about was it the Sherman tank, or I know I was reading a book about that because a lot of the fighting like in Europe and on the Eastern Front on both sides, but mainly from the American side, I have most of the books from that, and it was one of the biggest problems they had with those. They didn't want them falling into basements, so they'd have the guys like scout out. It's like, what houses do you have a basement or whatever? Because the best way to do it was just to run into the house, get people out of it with the tank. You want to fire the gun into it because they just go out the other side. And yeah, but they had a problem with like losing those in basements. I was just trying to imagine being poor assholes in that tank, and it just like tips over and slams into the ground. And that's only when they didn't have artillery. A lot of times it's like people are shooting at us from the city. Okay, well, back up in a big circle and just call it in. They didn't do that so much in France because they were technically our allies, but in Germany it got really like, yeah, just shell the city. Why? Don't lose one life. If those people want to shoot at you from the church, shell the church. Just call it in.
They have kids fighting us. It's like, well, shell it, because you don't want to kill those kids up close. Like, let them all die from artillery.
Yeah, if those kids get blown into vapor, that's not a face you have to look at later. Well, that was one thing that always, particularly, like the Italians were always horrified that we were willing, like they thought it would, and a lot of Germans, like, well, we'll just hide in cultural landmarks. Like, yeah, they would never do that. And it's like, nope, actually, yeah, we would. Because what was that place called? Monte Cassino? It was like that historic church, and we just like bombed it with bombers because we weren't willing to lose like 300 people trying to. Like, that's a historic church. It's like, well, the Germans shouldn't have been hiding there. Don't care. It's just, we're not here on vacation.
It's like everything gets hit by a drone is like some combination terrorist cell, church, and hospital all in one. It's like, which is it? I got
That's convenient. This is a mosque and a hospital, and then they also had the cure for cancer in the basements. Did they really? Okay. I mean, maybe that's the case. I don't know about that, but there's just not that many buildings left. I mean, how much has the Middle East been shelled since the 1970s? Like, if you added, I mean, I know they rebuild a lot, but it's like, god damn.
But that's actually something that happened. I think it was in Generation Kill where they refrained from shelling a mosque, but one of the captains like, no, let's hit that. But he didn't know how to call in an artillery strike correctly, so they didn't shoot it.
He blew up the milk factory behind him or something.
No, he didn't know how to call in the order, so they didn't even send it.
Yeah.
And also I think that was also the he wanted to shell the mosque, but they were like too close to it, and the guy's like, we're danger close, and he's like, what's that? And he had to get out a handbook. It's like, it means if you want to fire at that, we're in the kill zone.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. That was like one of the captains that was like an Oklahoma State quarterback.
Oh.
And so
he
like
wanted to kill people, but he didn't know how to do it without getting people killed.
Well, he kind of knew how to be a leader, but he's also just a meathead who didn't like get really and didn't do detail and very well.
Yeah, you got to do detail when you want to rain fire from the sky. That is important.
So
I thought that movie I watched about the Australian contingent that was fighting in Vietnam.
I believe I haven't seen it yet. I remember seeing the commercial for it.
Yeah, that they were doing shit like they must have had very good maps, because they were they were being overrun, and they would like hold a position. They would call in their artillery, and the artillery guys were horrified. It's like, they're 200 feet from where we're going to be dropping these things in, and they're like, yeah, they're going to be overrun. We got to do it that way. And they would literally wait and listen for like the thunder, and then all their guys would get down, and the Vietnamese would be charging them, and then the shells would start coming in. I guess that was based on shit that really happened. But they were like 200 feet from where their guys were, just hitting it with artillery, and they knew it too. But I guess they had really good maps, and they had guys that could direct it well, because they had held that area at one time. You know, that was one of those weird wars where they would hold territory and then just leave it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, even the guys loading the artillery were like, we're gonna fucking kill these guys. That's what they need. It's that or they're gonna be captured by the Vietnamese, and that's not, that's a fate worse than death. So go ahead.
And there's like maybe hundreds, but I know of like at least like 5 different stories in World War II where like you'd have like a guy up in a church calling our artillery, and then like a German infantry like battalion would walk through town. There's literally like 500 Germans around him. Is like, just fire it right at me, and like he dies. But there's also, when they walk in that town, there's 500 dead Nazis there.
Yeah, I've heard stories like that. It's just such weird. Yeah, it's just scary. You try, because it's like, I remember I read a book about it. This was like the Red Front, or something. It was from the Soviet side of that, and the Russians loved artillery, but much like the guy here you're talking about, who was kind of like to be a leader but didn't do details well, the Russians, they often shelled their own people. Like, they were supposed to be supporting in advance, and they would just fire like into their ranks. Germans are like, what? Wait a minute, what? Pull back! What the fuck's going on? They're shooting their own people as they're attacking us, and
Well, don't advance, I guess.
and because the Russians loved artillery, they had a lot of it, but they didn't necessarily have the best people facilitating it all the time. And when they got their shit together, it was truly frightening. Like, they would fire thousands of rounds of artillery at the Germans, and they're like destroying their whole country to push the Germans out. But yeah, when they got it wrong, it was quite sad. People trying to scramble under tanks to not get killed, and then the guys driving the tanks have to get out and look and make sure they're not running over their own people. I mean, stuff from the Eastern Front during World War II is just, it was like, what a horrid waste of like brave people that were willing to go do this, but you're just like spending their lives so cheaply on just moronic organization and just not checking things. Oh yeah, it was. But then they'd have like the the Battle of the Citadel and all that. It's just like insane stuff that the Red Army, like, who are these people that just literally just charged like gun, because they didn't have artillery at support. I forget what that battle in particular was horrified, because basically the Germans were in literally a citadel, like a fortress, and the Russians were like, we're just going to take it. And everyone who looked at it, it's like, there's no way we can take this and not spend like a whole company of lives just trying to take. And I'm like, no, we're going to do it. And they did it, but they literally, guys knew they were going to die. Like, there was no chance that they were going to. They said, if you can just knock down one German, just get one guy's head down for 1 minute, we can send people in after you, and that guy won't be able to shoot back. It's like that kind of thinking. They'd send guys in with explosives. That was always the thing. They had really unstable, shitty explosives. And who's carrying the explosives that, may or may not detonate while he's running towards whatever his objective is? There was a lot of Russian stuff like that from I think that book was called Red Front or something. It was different stories from people that lived through that war. And those guys were like they're in the 80s and 90s. And they didn't have anything good to say. I don't care what they do to me now. I'm going to tell you the truth. The first man shot when we're being overrun is we shoot the commissar. It's like, how many of your own people do you have to kill in case the Germans are overrunning you so you don't get put in a gulag? Well, there's 3. And it's like everyone always knows. It's like, save a grenade for the commissar and the sergeant. Yeah, it's like wow, okay. But that's was a reality of Stalin's Russia, not known for its efficiency. But anyway,
So I snuck in a book this week
what'd you
because,
get?
because of the power was down.
Oh yeah, it's time to go back to old forms of entertainment.
This is another audio book. This is the follow up to "We'll Save the Galaxy for Food." So this is "We'll Destroy the Galaxy for Cash."
Okay.
There's not much I can say. Like I really like it, but the kind of like the most thing about both these books is like I think they're Audible originals. So I'm not even sure if you can get them in written form, but it's more about the performance of it and just sort of the witty, dry, and wacky British humor. It's very one of those.
Okay.
It's kind of, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy esque.
Oh, that kind of vein of humor and sadness.
Yeah.
Okay.
But much like the first book, it's a world where you kind of have these they're just called pilots, and they're essentially it's like hundreds of Han Solos who just like gotten adventures, saved princesses, and like they're very valued, but they're also very how would you say irresponsible with some of the things they did. But eventually, quantum tunneling was invented, so it's essentially like a teleporter. So you don't need spaceships anymore. We can just like, well, put a teleporter on this planet. We've got a teleporter on this planet. And like, we don't need spaceships anymore.
Oh, the old Runcible thing
Yeah.
from their series. Yep.
Yeah, what's the series?
Oh, it's well, you read Prater Moon. but
Yeah, that
Neil-
series.
Neil
Yeah,
Ashton series.
it's the same concept, and so this is just kind of like the hilarious, so you have this guy who I don't think you actually know his name, but there's the most famous pilot in the world is a guy named Jack McCune. Just like every time you hear it's one of those names where that's a fucking weird name, and then you hear this British guy say it, and it's like every third sentence like Jack McKeon. It's just fun. A lot of fun, just weird shit and names.
Okay.
But he impersonates Jack McCune, and he's like, this movie it's supposed to be a heist, and then it ends up like going wrong because like what they're getting isn't even a heist, and then at some point he has like a catharsis, and he thinks like he has that like, am I the bad guy? Because there's a part where like they get out of like hyperspace or whatever, and he ends up like destroying another pilot or at least he thinks it's a pilot, and then he like has this moment of crisis, like, am I the bad guy? And then he starts like really going into like the bad guy role, and it's like he's like has his crew, and he's like, quiet, you worm, and he like just turns into just like kind of plays in the whole what he thinks an evil guy is, but he doesn't. So that's kind of funny. And also just like they have the concept of pilot math, which has nothing to do with mathematics except for the words of mathematics. So essentially the cultural value of the pilots is the way they swear. And so like so it's clever because it makes the book kind of for children because you eliminate swearing. And it's also, makes it weird because you have things like you take subtract and then you just make it tract, and now tract equals shit.
Okay. So they're doing like some form of rhyming slang.
Yeah.
This word.
Well, it doesn't even rhyme. It's just like you take part of a word, a mathematical term, and then it just becomes. Or you have like multiply becomes ply, which becomes plying, which is essentially just that means fucking.
Okay.
It's like. Be like, this plying rust bucket doesn't know tract about stuff like that. Yeah, so they're just fun books. Yeah, I don't know, it's hard. They're just funny books, and it's hard to rate comedy. So all I can say is I enjoyed it, and they're Audible originals if you want to check them out.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we watched a movie this week.
Yes.
We watched a Netflix film. It's Basically, the title in English is "The Night Is Lonely."
Okay.
But if you want to look it up, it's Rat Akili High. That's how you'd find it on Netflix. It is it's an Indian film, an Indian crime drama.
Done in Hindi.
Yeah, done in Hindi, but it's dubbed in English. So,
Oh, I watched the subtitles.
nah, I just
But what's fucking weird is you can see like it's throughout the movie you can see the limitations of Hindi because there's like points where basically people are speaking like full sentences of English in between Hindi.
yeah, I thought that was weird because I noticed when I was watching it, it's like they're breaking into English now. It's not. This isn't like great synchronization. It's like no, they're speaking English. Yeah, the movie starts out with a great shot. It kind of sets the stage for the whole thing.
It's basically fucking what's that horror movie? Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, it kind of starts out like that. They have a great like drone shot when he's driving into the city to dispose of the bodies.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe this. I mean, let's just synopsize this movie. This is about a policeman in India who's investigating. He investigates murders, but he's kind of an outcast. Not because he's bad at his job, but he's actually too good at it, and he actually acts with ethics.
Well, also there's a weird thing. There's a weird kind of racism thing where he's dark skinned, I guess, and
Yeah.
people like. I guess you're lesser if the darker skinned you are in India, or at least in this
seems to-
area.
I don't know if that. I don't know. Because I thought they were talking about like some kind of like caste. Because well, first of all, let me say I watched this movie. I don't know anything about India.
Oh yeah, that's probably what makes this movie more interesting is the all the cultural like misunderstanding or like I don't know what this is about, but this is kind of interesting because I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah. Like I don't know if this is an accurate reflection of India.
Nope, no idea.
Dark Mirror. Is this like the True Detective of India? Like it's like, well, it's not quite that weird, but it could be. I don't know.
Well, because I thought there was something like there's that like face cream he puts on, and I thought that was like something where like it makes his skin lighter, like where it's like
Yeah.
part acid or something like that, and like he was doing that intentionally or something.
Yeah, they do have lightning cream. I've never had to worry about it. So if I put it on, I would just simply become transparent. So, but yeah, there seems to be like I know there's orders in India of people. Because I know like orphans and people born to a certain group are like you can basically do anything you want with them. And then there's people it goes up in terms of.
Is this different from the caste system, or is this like a more evolved caste system?
I think it's a carryover of it. I
Okay.
don't know if they officially have that anymore. I tried to.
Well,
look-
that's one of the things. Like they don't have a caste system anymore, but it seems to be just unofficially like they have a caste system. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a group of people are going to organize you into something.
Yeah, everyone's going to try to game the system to their advantage. But it seems to me like in India, like because I watched some YouTube videos and I read a bunch of stuff about India after watching this, and it's kind of like the system they have now is like I said, the orphans and people born to a certain group are like at the bottom, and there's names for them that I can't pronounce, and then there's like everyone else in the middle. There's like a wide middle there. And then, like, what kind of education you can get and who you're friends with kind of determine one thing or the other. So you can move higher up in the society. And having money means a lot, but doesn't mean everything. Because there's, like, a spiritual group, too, that doesn't have any money, but they can judge everyone else. So it's sort of... That doesn't come into this movie, but it just... I was trying to understand what I was watching. And I will say I like this movie just because it was like fascinating. Like, what is this? What planet is this going on? And
I mean, it's kind of like a standard like noir like
Yeah.
crime movie.
Yeah.
But it was like all my learning about the culture kind of made it elevate above like just a standard noir movie.
Yeah, because it's pretty much boilerplate as this kind of movie goes, and like we were saying, it's like they don't break out into song in the middle of this. It's a straight. This was somebody, whoever made this or whoever produced this and wrote this, like they really loved American crime dramas.
Yeah.
Or British ones or whatever. They're both similar. and it kind of was that story.
And
But-
it's a serious movie, but it does have like comical elements to it, which I guess is like kind of like makes it more endearing in a way. Because always
Yeah.
like his mom is always trying to get him hooked up with people, because like that's like a whole like subplot of the movie is like it's wedding season, which like becomes what the crime like, becomes all about, or like when it takes place and how that affects everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because this our main character, his 'cause he has a cool
Is it
name.
Jatil? Is that his name?
Yeah, Jatil Yadav. But everyone, yeah, he like I say, he kind of has a cool sounding name. And there's a bunch of other people.
And there's there's like something where he's looking in the mirror and like they're saying like when he does something with his hair and puts the aviator glasses on, he looks like some movie star. But I don't know who that is, so I didn't like. Oh, I don't get that reference, but I assume it's some good-looking movie star or something. Or maybe they're actually just referencing the guy who plays him. I don't know.
Because he's a big actor over there.
Yeah.
This is like, yeah, I don't know if it's like they have so many actors, and they make so many movies, and some of them are like just 8 hours long. But they, I think this guy's like kind of like the George Clooney of India. I don't know.
Okay.
Seem to be you look up his movie credits, it's a whole bunch of movies. I can't pronounce any of them, but it's like this guy does a lot of work.
Every time you see like a movie from India, it's like, well, this is the most beautiful person in the world. Why aren't they like doing American movies? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, because they're like 5'4" or something like that.
Yeah, there's something weird, like because some like all the women in this movie, or most of them, the ones that are supposed to be, are like just drop dead gorgeous. It's like these people, you think they'd be all over the world acting, but they're also kind of, there's sort of a cultural mire there that they live into, because they're a real conservative country when it comes to sex and stuff.
Yeah.
That's because I heard this movie was somewhat controversial over there, and it's like, well, there was never any like what we would call sex scenes or full frontal nudity in this or anything, but it was considered to be very very controversial, I guess.
Huh.
Because it kind of acknowledged that sex exists. I mean, I don't know anything about Hindu or what their cultural norms are. Again, so I'm just watching this. It's like it's
Yeah, and I don't really know the area that this takes place in, which could add to like, oh, it's completely different for like India's like this, yeah, but this is northern India, which is completely different. It's like the Texas of India or something like that.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I did think it was funny that like a police detective rode around on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting. And then those motorcycles they're riding around on, those are those single piston ones.
Huh.
That like those are kind of those are real popular because they're easy to make. But you remember like, well, my big Harley I had. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, those single piston, straight piston motorcycles, they don't get much better mileage than my 800-pound Harley Davidson because that engine design isn't the most efficient. It's just cheap to make.
Yeah.
So they're saying like those, because I even looked up like what's the deal with his motorcycle? What is an Enfield Royal? What does that mean? But yeah, it's just an Indian company that makes like I don't know, a million of these motorcycles or whatever. But they said one of the problems with those is they're easy to fix, they're easy to make, but they just use a lot of gas. It's like it's a problem there because almost everyone has it. Like, you almost never see this guy in a car until the end.
Yeah.
Always riding around on his motorcycle, being chased by people.
Or he's with like his investigation group and he's like being driven around, but he's not driving.
Somebody's driving him in like a Suzuki Samurai or some weird vehicle like that.
I also didn't know how to like take like how big the city was, or because like you read the synopsis and it's like a small town cop, and then like you have like a police department, all this other stuff, and it seems like a lot of people. Like that doesn't seem like a small town cop.
Well, there's our small town, and
Yeah.
there's a country of 1 billion people, small town.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this is probably just like another different.
A provincial fishing village of 1 million people. I thought it was interesting, like he's taking a bath with a hose.
Yeah.
House is broken, and then it's like, and the mom wants to get it fixed, but then they say something about how we can't get the thing filled until it's fixed. It's like, oh, they're just filling water cisterns built onto their houses, like they're not being piped in from anywhere. That's different. Okay. And then they had their, but everyone had a smartphone. It's like, oh, okay. was like putting the horse before the cart. I don't know. But I did find the movie enjoyable. It was well paced. Even the shootouts were kind of endearing. I don't know why they were it was just fun. Well, because a lot of this was like him running from people shooting at him because he didn't typically have a gun. He's not shooting back, so it's like a lot of British police dramas. It's like, oh, he's got a gun. It's like, well, shoot him. Get your Glock out. It's like, oh yeah, they don't have those over there. I mean, they get them eventually, but
Sometimes with the character, it can be kind of weird because he can kind of be a shithead.
yeah,
Where he's just like antagonizing people and slapping them and just accusing people of things straight to their face. And then and sometimes he'll be charming. It's like, is he, and like, I don't know if it's two different modes. Like sometimes he's charming, sometimes he's shithead, or is he a complete charming shithead? I don't know.
he seemed to interact with. There seemed to be people that he liked and he felt sorry for, and then there's people he just wanted to slap.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and he didn't like the rich guys and he didn't like the powerful guys. He didn't slap them a lot, but those guys, you know, I mean, the one guy was like calling his boss as he was talking to him. It's like, you need to get this man away from me. He was rude to my family, and there's a fucking body upstairs. And he doesn't need to be rude to my family. And then like his boss and that guy, the politician, are out to dinner. It's like, well, this guy's definitely got his hands tied behind his back investigating this. Because his boss is clearly corrupt, but also likes this guy at the same time. And it's like, because he has some speech he gives to him. It's like, it's important you understand how these things work. Remember they had that moment? It's like, you just charge in, you're doing this stuff. This is why they didn't like you at the other place he worked when he was a cop somewhere else. He's like, his boss is trying to help him. Like, it's like, you in the ways of corruption. You gotta understand how this works.
Also, the movie has a framing device where like it jumps back 5 years to help explain what's going on now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the jump back to the train with the woman who lives in the house. What was her name?
I'm gonna be bad with names on this one. So
Yeah, well,
I remember Jatiel. That's about it.
the one that he likes.
Yeah,
Um,
the lady was gonna jump off the train because she was
yeah,
getting
her name was
forced to
Rod-
married or something.
something like that.
Then she ends up getting married to this old guy, or did she get married to the old guy?
No, she was like the house
Oh, okay.
property or something. I don't know. She was essentially a prostitute. It sounded like.
Yeah, because like the guy was abusing her.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and the other lady's daughter. It's the same, you know, that's where all the weird pictures were from. Her name's Radhika in the story. That's the woman's name. She's kind of like the abused. Well, they say she's a girl from the village, and it's like, so yeah, she's just you can beat her and rape her or whatever.
Oh, yeah, is she the orphan?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she was gonna jump off the train, and this guy goes back. And, he always wanted to help her.
I always like weirdly terrified because there's just a bunch of moments where he's just like out smoking in between trains. It's like, dude, it's like you could just fall off that fucking train, man. There's nothing holding you onto that middle of the train.
And the train's just rocking around.
It's like, well, I can't smoke in the train, so I got to smoke out here.
Yeah. So this woman. So you got the cop, Jatio, and then you got the woman at the house, Radhika, which everyone's trying to pin the murder on her, but she's not. She's actually not the one. It was.
Well, you don't have to spoil it if you guys want to see it.
Yeah. You watch the movie.
It's a kind of Agatha Christie-esque and how like it kind of all wraps up and like everybody was involved in the murder or something like that.
Yeah, everyone was involved, and the killer. I like that the main killer in the movie was a really scary looking Indian guy.
Is that the butcher guy?
Yeah, he ends well. I like that lady got back at him.
That's where it starts the movie with him where he just like seemingly kills random people and then like dissolves their bodies in acid, but then he accidentally spills acid on himself and starts screaming and just runs into some dirty river and then like 5 years later. It's like,
Yep.
well, that's abrupt.
Yeah, the healing rivers over there. 'Cause trust me, they're not sending the sewage to the treatment plants. Jump in that river.
Yeah, the shit will stop the acid burns.
Well, yeah, it's like acid. Yeah, you don't put water in that. That will gotta neutralize it.
Was it baking soda? That's what we learned from Fight Club.
Was that from Fight Club?
Yeah, remember?
I
he,
don't
like-
Oh
remember
yeah,
that-
that's right. Yeah, lye. Yeah, you gotta neutralize that with baking soda.
Oh, okay. That was-
I don't know what this stuff was. But yeah, a lot of cool shots in this movie. Definitely someone who knows how to make a movie.
Yeah.
His name's Honey Trehan. Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised I liked this. I was like, what am I gonna get out of this? It's like, well, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I just saw the trailer for it and I thought it looked kind of neat, so I was like, yeah, I'll try it.
Yeah,
It's like the cinematography looked good. They have that guy. They have the main cop guy like slapping people like 8 times in the trailer. It's like, well, I gotta watch this guy slap people all the way through this movie.
yeah, this guy likes to slap.
And I thought his jacket looked cool. And
Yeah, I mean, he was a cool looking guy. You know,
Yeah.
it's definitely looked like I don't mess with this cop in India. Even when he was riding his bike. And I guess I like how him and his partner got into a fight, but it's only talked about. Like you see the beginning of it. And remember when they're because him and his partner riding double on this motorcycle, which is it's like yeah, that's not what that's kind of a weird hero move, but okay. And then they get off the bike and they argue, and he slaps his partner. And then later they're in the boss's office, and it's like you were brawling in the street in front of witnesses. Other police had to come and break it up. Do you know how embarrassing this is? It's like, yeah.
there's also sometimes where like Jatil would. It seemed like people were just. It was a normal back and forth, and he'd be like, "Don't raise your voice to me." It's like I don't think that guy raised his voice, but it was I don't know. It was maybe something I didn't understand, but that was like a real thing where he thought people like raising their voices or maybe talking too fast and it was insulting him in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that now. It's like, oh, this is a strange term. What's the name?
Yeah. So yeah, rattle off that name again. It's like rat with 2 A's and then Akil or was it?
Radakili High is what I'm
yeah.
gonna say it is.
Yeah, just do rat with 2 A's and you'll probably get where you want.
Yeah, the search engine will bring it up. It's also The Night is Lonely.
Oh, can you search The Night is Lonely and it'll come up?
No, I'm just looking.
Oh, okay.
It has some interesting musical montages where it sounds like an Indian version of who's the guy, like Phil Collins.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a lot of like that high singing, and he's like looking, into the distance, like he's having some dark thoughts, and it's like, well, that works in this context. But, yeah, so check it out. It's a good time. Might even learn something. Takes me back to like my PBS days, watching those kind of those British TV shows where I don't exactly understand what's going on, that are set in other countries, but it's with all British people.
Yeah.
They used to show that on like Masterpiece Theater in the 80s. It's like, what's going on? A lot of those were set in India too.
Huh.
Well, because that used to be like a
Colony.
colony, yeah. Which is weird. It's like India's a much larger, more populous country, but yeah, okay. But I don't know what life was like in India before the British came. It might have, because they seem to like still copy the British in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's, maybe it was better. It's not always good being under someone's thumb, but when your people are corrupt, was it like North Korea before the British came? I don't know. I doubt it. Don't know anything about their history.
The British came and we got eaten by less tigers, but now we're being oppressed by the British.
Yeah. I'm learning more. Let's see, what group? China. I'm reading more about their history. Mainly from like the communist, the Civil War that happened after World War II and stuff. I'm reading a lot more about that. It's actually hard to find stuff about that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, China's not an open book by any means. people in China and India love each other too. It's amazing, like how well they get along. If you've been next to each other for thousands.
I don't know if that's sarcasm.
No, yeah, that's sarcasm.
Okay.
Absolutely hate each other.
Because I'm trying to think, like, have India and China ever been at war together? And I couldn't think of anything.
Well, I mean, India is not rapidly developing nuclear weapons just because of Pakistan. It's like that's not the only reason. I mean, I think they probably see more common cause with each other than like they do with us, but I don't think they get. I mean, their governing systems are not. India's kind of a weird place, but it is actually the world's largest democracy. Like, everyone gets a vote in India. I don't know what their social mores are, but I do know, like, they do pride themselves in being a democracy.
Yeah.
Where they don't have like dynastic leaders or communists running things for 100 years or anything. So I know they have some respect for that system, whereas the Chinese do not at all. Well, because they've never. I don't think the Chinese have ever had a democratic period. They went right from one kind of corruption and totalitarianism to another, except Taiwan. But that's because those were the.
Wasn't Taiwan just like intentionally created to be a weird amorphous thing, so both U.S. and China can like take advantage of it, or what do you call
Yeah, I
it?
mean, how it shook out after the war, because like I said, they started their civil war. It was the communists versus the capitalists, we'll say. That's the communists they grabbed everyone from the north off the farms and stuff and just gave them rifles. So essentially, the non-communist Chinese, they lost and they fled to the island of Formosa, which we call Taiwan now. So those are like the Taiwanese are the free market Chinese.
Okay.
And the mainland China is those are the communists.
And Hong Kong's kind of different.
Yeah, Hong Kong was a colony owned by the British, and then after its colonization charter ended in '97, it became what did they call it? A special. How did the Chinese call it? It was like a special trade zone within China.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to interact with the West. And then when Clinton came along, he gave the Chinese like a trade status that allowed them just to trade directly with us instead of through proxies. So then that's like the need for Hong Kong sort of lessened after that, as the Chinese industry got bigger and we did a lot more business with the West. So like a lot of those kind of offshoot countries that are parts of China that were free are now they're kind of just fading into antiquity because China's they know how to deal with the world now. You don't need to go through proxies and cutouts and set up special zones because you don't want your people to know that there's a life outside of China that's a lot better. This communism shit sucks. Like, it was supposed to be a secret. Now they don't care. They're not really communists anymore. They're just a police state.
That place is better, yeah, but you're not going there. It's like, yeah, you're right.
Well, now they just brainwash people and they tell them where they live.
Yeah.
Which maybe it's true. I don't know. I never lived there. Don't really want to. Their language is way too complex to understand. So, but yeah, that's that part of the world. I'm gradually reading books and trying to learn more about it. Things like the Long March and all those, and the cultural revolutions, and just how many people the Chinese killed of their own people, not during war, but during like what you call, Mao's cultural revolutions, like killed way more people than Hitler, than Stalin. But we didn't know about it because it was all internal to China.
Yeah.
Because to us, it was all one group of people. It's like, why are they doing this to themselves? That's weird. Is it going to affect the price of oil? No. Well, then don't. But yeah, there's not a lot of like histories of China in the modern times that there's, because they can't write their own stuff internally because the party controls what's there, and there's not a lot of stuff written for a Western audience. So I'm just reading a lot of like big picture, like British histories of Hong Kong and things like that, and British histories of the post World War II China, and who Mao was and why he came to power, and who all the people around him were and what their political concepts were. You know, because I mean, they're like the Long March is like it's a fight. You know, like the Russians, they had their 5-year plan under Stalin and stuff. The Chinese have like the 500-year plan. You know, it's like they're just thinking out eons of, well, we'll eventually be at the top of the pile. It's like, when? It's like, what do you want to do? Change interest rates? Build your infrastructure? No, just wait 5,000 years for everyone else to kill themselves.
We got to turn the Earth into a rocket engine.
Yeah, we're just going to be the wandering China. Just going to blast off from the planet. Wait, you know, orbit around and wait for us to destroy each other, and then they can come back and win. They think like that, though. They're the people that'll suffer and die, and like their stories. Like, I do this for my grandchildren. It's like, but yeah, but your life's gonna suck, but my life will suck, but theirs won't. It's like, well, that's
That's admirable, but also you should be selfish.
yeah. It's also sad because they also don't believe in like an afterlife or anything either. And it's like, this is it. It's gonna suck.
Well, there is stuff, but like you don't. There is like a sort of zombie-esque afterlife, and like you don't want to be that, so like nothing is preferable.
Yeah, just oblivion is preferable to you know, fear. But yeah, that gets into Buddhism and stuff, and it's like, I don't even understand that either.
Yeah.
I just view things like when I read about like the Russians and the Soviet times, like their culture is not that far removed. They have their own little things, but it's like, I understand they're Western thinkers. I understand they're not coming at it from some philosophical bent I can't grasp or have never been exposed to. But yeah, when you read histories of like East Asia and stuff, it's like, well, there's the Buddhists and the Zen Buddhists, and these people kind of blend. I mean, they did the same thing that people do to Christianity. They just co-opt it for their own purpose, and it's like, well, wait, is this corrupt Buddhism or real Buddhism? What does this mean? You know, why does a Zen tea ceremony have 600 rules and like, you know? Because a lot of their stuff is like, you know, when you eat with people or whatever, you don't talk about serious issues. And it's like, oh, that sounds kind of stupid. When do you talk about serious issues?
I mean, that's not too far from America. You just like, you get your serious stuff out at Thanksgiving, and then you just never see those people ever again. You eat on your lonesome.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's just some of the formal thinking is kind of, oh, that's interesting. Does that work? Yeah. Who knows? All right. Well, that's all I got.
All right.
So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
And this is Conlon. Goodbye, America.